My parents kicked me out and handed me $50. 7 years later, my sister walked into my corner office begging for a job while my father waited in the lobby. Hey Reddit. Never thought I'd be telling this story publicly, but after what went down last Tuesday, I need to get this off my chest. My parents kicked me out the day I turned 18 and gave me $50 like I was some charity case they were finally done supporting. 7 years later, my sister walked into my corner office in Austin, wearing the same practiced smile she used to flash whenever she needed Dad to sign another tuition check or bail her out of whatever mess she'd created. Except this time, the man who had once screamed that I was a worthless leech destined for failure was sitting in my lobby pretending to read an old magazine while he waited to see if I would throw his golden child a lifeline. The whole situation would be darkly funny if it wasn't so twisted. The same people who told me I'd end up dead or in jail by 21 were now showing up with their hands out, desperate for help from the son they threw away like garbage 7 years ago. The son they decided wasn't worth the investment. The son who apparently wasn't good enough to deserve even basic human decency on the coldest night of the year. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this nightmare actually started, because understanding how I got here requires understanding exactly what they did to me that night. I, 25 male, still remember every single second of that February night in Toledo. It was Valentine's Day because Frank Brennan always did love dramatic timing. The temperature was 8 degrees outside with wind chill bringing it down to -10. I was exactly 18 years old. Had turned 18 at midnight the night before, actually. Standing barefoot on the frozen porch in socks that had holes in both heels, holding a trash bag of hastily packed clothes while my mother tried not to cry and completely failed at it. The porch was covered in ice. I remember that specifically because my feet kept sliding and I had to grab the railing to stay upright. My toes were already going numb. I'd been inside watching TV when Dad came home from his shift at the factory and announced it was time for me to leave. Didn't even let me put shoes on. Just told me to pack what I could carry in 10 minutes and get out. Dad filled the doorway like a wall. 6'2", 250 pounds, arms thick as tree trunks from 30 years of slinging heavy crates at the automotive plant. His face was red, not from cold, but from the rage he'd been saving up for weeks, maybe months. The kind of anger that builds when a man decides he's done carrying weight he never wanted to carry in the first place. When he's convinced himself that cutting loose dead weight is actually an act of strength rather than cruelty. "You're done," he said, voice flat and final, like he was reading off a script he'd practiced. 18 today. Legal adult, get out of my house. "You're not my responsibility anymore," I begged. I actually got down on my knees on that frozen porch and begged. It's humiliating to admit now, but I was terrified. I had nowhere to go. No family who would take me in. No friends with spare rooms. And it was 8 degrees outside. I had the acceptance letter from Ohio State in my hand. Had been carrying it around for weeks like a lucky charm. Partial academic scholarship covering about 60% of tuition. I just needed help with room and board for 1 year, maybe 2, if I could find campus housing that wasn't too expensive. After that, I'd planned to work my way through the rest. I'd already worked 2 jobs since I was 15 to save money. Dishwashing at the 24-hour diner on weekends. Stocking shelves at the grocery store after school during the week, whatever would pay. Had almost $11,000 saved up in an account Dad didn't know about. Just needed a little more to make it work. Dad laughed when I showed him the letter. Actually laughed, this bitter sound that came from somewhere deep in his chest. The kind of laugh that has no joy in it whatsoever. Then he looked over his shoulder at Taylor, my sister, who was leaning against the banister in her brand new sorority hoodie from Kent State, examining her professionally manicured nails like this whole scene was boring her. Like her brother wasn't on his knees begging for basic shelter on the coldest night of winter. "Tell him, Taylor," Dad said, voice dripping with contempt. "Tell your brother how much your last semester cost us." My sister shrugged without even looking up from her nails. "Like 28 grand after the scholarship. Maybe 30. I don't really keep track." $28,000, Dad repeated slowly, turning back to me with this look of pure disgust on his face. "And you want another 20 on top of that? For what? So you can drop out when it gets hard? Like you drop everything else when you realize it requires actual work?" "That's not fair," I started, but he cut me off. "Shut your mouth," Dad said. His voice dropped into that register he used on the factory floor when someone was about to get fired, the one that made grown men with decades of experience flinch and look at the ground. "I carried this family since the day you were born. Worked doubles and graveyard shifts. Missed sleep. Broke my back so you two could have what I never had growing up. I'm not carrying you 1 more inch. You're an adult now. Act like it." Mom tried to step between us, her face red from crying. Frank, please! It's freezing out here. Maybe we can all calm down and talk about this inside where it's... He shoved her back so hard she hit the wall. The sound of her body hitting the siding made me flinch. I saw the exact moment she chose silence over me. The exact second her eyes went from concerned to resigned. She wasn't going to fight for me. She never had before, and she wasn't starting now. In the hierarchy of our family, Dad's anger was more important than my safety. Always had been. Dad reached into his wallet, pulled out two $20 bills and a 10, all crisp from the ATM like he'd specifically withdrawn them for this moment, and flicked them at my chest with two fingers like they were worthless. Like I was worthless. They fluttered to the porch like dead leaves, landing on frozen concrete covered in a thin layer of ice. There's your inheritance, he said. Happy birthday. That's more than I got when I left home at 16. Taylor finally spoke up from her safe position inside the warm house. Dad, maybe he can sleep in the garage tonight. Just for tonight. It's really cold. He can sleep in the street for all I care, Dad snarled. And I could see he actually meant it. This wasn't bluster or exaggeration. He genuinely didn't care if I froze to death that night. Locks are getting changed first thing tomorrow morning. Anything he leaves behind goes straight to Goodwill. Every single thing. I'm done with this. The door slammed in my face so hard the frame shook. The deadbolt shot home with a sound like a gunshot that echoed in the cold air. Then the porch light clicked off on its timer 10 seconds later, leaving me in total darkness except for the weak yellow glow from streetlights 3 houses down. I stood there until I literally couldn't feel my toes anymore. Until my fingers went so numb I couldn't bend them. Until the cold sank so deep into my bones that I stopped shivering and just went completely still, which I later learned is actually a really bad sign when you're dealing with hypothermia. My body was starting to shut down. Then I picked up those 3 bills with fingers that barely worked, stuffed them into my pocket, grabbed that trash bag, and started walking. Didn't know where I was going. Just knew I had to keep moving or I'd freeze to death standing there. It was 10 miles to the Greyhound station. 10 miles through snow and ice in the middle of February wearing socks with holes in them. My socks were soaked completely through by mile 2. By mile 5, I couldn't feel my feet at all. Just kept walking because stopping meant dying. By mile 8, I was crying, but the tears froze on my cheeks before they could fall, leaving these weird ice tracks on my face. The Greyhound station was heated at least. The $50 bought me a one-way ticket to Columbus, $42, and one night in a motel that rented rooms by the hour. $8 for 6 hours in a room with stained sheets and a bathroom that smelled like mold, but it had heat and a door that locked. That left me with $0 and 0 cents. After that first night, I was completely broke, homeless, and totally alone. That was the last time I ever called any of them family. The last time I ever thought of Frank and Taylor Brennan as people who owed me anything, or who I owed anything to in return. The next 7 years were absolute war. I fought with bleeding hands and an empty stomach. I slept rough in places that would make most people sick to even think about. The first 2 weeks, I slept in the bus station bathroom when the overnight security guard was the kind one who pretended not to notice me. When the mean guard was on duty, this guy named Phillips who seemed to take personal pleasure in harassing homeless people, I'd sleep under the overpass or in the doorway of closed businesses, curled up in that trash bag to try and stay warm. I got jumped twice in the first month. The first time was for the shoes on my feet, actual sneakers I'd bought with money I'd saved from the diner. Nothing fancy but waterproof and warm. 3 guys surrounded me behind a warehouse around 2 a.m., and I tried to fight back, but there were 3 of them. They took the shoes and left me bleeding from a split lip with a bruised rib. The second time was worse. That was for my backpack with my laptop in it. The laptop was everything. My only way to potentially pull myself out of this situation. My future in a beaten-up Dell. 4 guys this time, all older and bigger than the first group. When I tried to hold onto the backpack, they beat me worse. Got my nose broken, 3 ribs cracked, and a concussion that made me see double for 2 days. Then they took it anyway, along with the backpack that had my remaining clothes in it. I learned real fast after that. Started hiding the laptop in a plastic grocery bag inside my coat, carrying it pressed against my chest, sleeping with it literally under my head like a pillow even though it hurt my neck. Paranoid doesn't even begin to cover what I became. I'd wake up every 15 or 20 minutes in a panic, checking to make sure it was still there. The thought of losing it again terrified me more than the thought of getting beat up again. Food was whatever I could find or afford. I discovered which gas stations threw out donuts at the end of the day, which restaurants had dumpsters that weren't locked, which food pantries would give you something without asking too many questions. I learned to eat fast when I found food, because having food visible made you a target. Other homeless people would try to take it. You had to eat it or hide it immediately. The hardest part wasn't the hunger or the cold or even the fear. It was the invisibility. People would look right through me like I wasn't there, like I was already a ghost. I'd see families walking past me, kids my age going to class or to their jobs, and I might as well have been a piece of trash on the sidewalk for all the attention they paid me. You realize real quick that society doesn't see homeless people as humans. We're problems to be avoided, eyesores to be ignored. I found work washing dishes at the Sunrise Diner off I-75 about 6 weeks after I got to Columbus. The owner was this guy Vincent, ex-con who'd done time back in the 90s, got out, went straight, and opened the diner. He saw something in the kid who never complained and never called in sick. Vincent figured out I was homeless after catching me washing up in the bathroom before my shift. "Storage room and back," he said one morning. "Got an old cot and a space heater. You come in at 4 a.m. to accept produce deliveries, you can crash there. Don't make me regret this." I said yes so fast my voice cracked. A storage room with a cot felt like winning the lottery. The cot was one of those folding military surplus ones, uncomfortable as hell, but it was better than concrete. The storage room was small and smelled like cardboard and cleaning supplies, but it was warm and dry and safe. Vincent let me keep my stuff there during shifts. The space heater was a fire hazard, one of those old ones with the orange coils. But it worked. I lived in that storage room for 8 months. Ate whatever didn't sell at the diner. Learned to make full meals out of scraps. Ketchup soup was actually a specialty of mine. Mix hot water with ketchup packets, add crackers if you have them, and you've got something that resembles tomato soup. Vincent pretended not to notice when food went missing, even though we both knew he knew. Sometimes he'd deliberately overcook an order and tell me to throw it out, then look the other way when I ate it instead. I showered at the Planet Fitness 2 blocks away with a $10 a month membership. That $10 was crucial. Being clean meant I could keep the dishwashing job. Being clean meant I didn't smell like the streets. I paid for that membership by collecting cans and bottles on my day off, walking through neighborhoods at dawn, going through recycling bins, filling trash bags until I had enough to cash in. 5 cents per can or bottle in Ohio. Do the math on how many cans you need to collect to make $10. It's a lot, a whole lot. But here's where my life actually started to change. I taught myself to code. The public library became my second home. They had computers anyone could use for 2 hours at a time, and the librarians were kind enough to look the other way when I'd come back under a different name and use them for another 2 hours. Fast food places cut Wi-Fi after 30 minutes and required you to buy something, which I couldn't always afford. The library was free. I sat at those computers for 8, 10, 12 hours straight on my days off, burning through tutorial after tutorial. Started with basic HTML and CSS because they were free and easy to learn. Then moved to JavaScript because every tutorial said that's what you needed for web development. Then Python because I read somewhere it was the future. Then everything else I could get my hands on. The internet was my teacher. Tutorial videos, free coding websites, forums where people would answer questions from beginners. I filled notebooks with code I'd copied down, practicing syntax until it made sense. Made hundreds of mistakes. Broke things constantly. But slowly, gradually, I started to understand how it all fit together. I built my first working application on a $70 laptop I bought from a pawn shop. The thing was a disaster. Cracked hinge, burns on the keyboard from whoever owned it before me, screen that flickered if you tilted it wrong, and a battery that maybe lasted 20 minutes before dying. But it worked. I could write code on it. That's all that mattered. The app I built was called Payrail. Simple name for a simple concept. It was a platform that helped small food truck owners process mobile payments and track inventory in real time. Nothing revolutionary or fancy. Just something that worked better and cheaper than what was already out there. The existing options were either too expensive for small businesses or too complicated to use. I made something in the middle, affordable and simple. I tested it on the food trucks that parked outside the diner, asked them to try it for free, told them I'd fix any bugs they found. They loved it, said it was exactly what they needed, started telling other food truck owners about it. Within 3 months, I had 20 food truck owners in Columbus using Payrail. Then the word spread to Cleveland. Then someone demoed it at South by Southwest, and Austin went absolutely crazy for it. Suddenly, I had 5,000 users, then 10,000. Then the emails started coming in from actual investors who wanted to talk about funding. The first seed round check arrived the week I turned 24. $600,000 for 15% equity in a company that was still basically just me and a laptop. I cried in the bathroom of a fast food place when I saw the number in my bank account because someone finally believed in me more than my own father ever had. Someone saw value in what I could do instead of just seeing a burden they wanted to get rid of. I moved to Austin with one duffel bag. Everything I owned fit in one bag. And the same winter coat from that night in Toledo, now patched with duct tape and safety pins holding it together. Rented a studio apartment for $1,200 a month, which felt completely insane. That was more money than I used to make in 3 months. But it was mine. My name on the lease, my space. No one could kick me out. The apartment felt like a palace, even though it was tiny and the AC barely worked. It had a real bed, a real bathroom with a shower that had good water pressure, a kitchen with a refrigerator that I could fill with actual food from the grocery store. I could turn on lights without worrying about someone telling me I was wasting power. I could take long showers without counting minutes. I could sleep without one eye open, but I wasn't anywhere close to done yet. Hadn't made it, not even remotely. I worked until I saw double from exhaustion, until my eyesight blurred from staring at screens for 16 hours straight, until my hands shook from too much caffeine and not enough sleep or proper food. Built out the platform, added features based on user feedback, hired developers who were better than me to make it faster and more secure, lived on ramen noodles and 4 hours of sleep while the company grew. Payrail went from 10,000 users to 50,000 in 6 months, then to 100,000, then to 500,000. The Series A funding came in at $8 million, Series B at $35 million. The company was growing faster than I could have imagined. When the original founders, 2 guys who'd invested early and gotten board seats, wanted to cash out after Series B, I refused to sign the paperwork unless they gave me controlling interest. They thought I was bluffing, laughed in my face, told me I was a kid who didn't understand how business worked, told me to be grateful for what I had and not get greedy. I walked away from the deal. Let it sit there unsigned for 3 weeks while they panicked and the board started asking questions. Let them sweat. Then I came back with my terms. 51% ownership, or I walk completely and start over from scratch. Maybe even become a competitor. They could keep their board seats, keep their equity stake, keep their salaries. But I wanted control. My company, my vision, my rules. They stopped laughing when their lawyers confirmed I could actually do it. Stopped laughing when they realized I was completely serious. Stopped laughing when they signed the papers giving me majority control. Payrail is now worth $2.7 billion on paper. My stake, that 51%, is worth more than every house, every car, every savings account in the entire Toledo zip code I grew up in. Combined, I've got more money than I know what to do with, and it's still growing. And last month, Taylor Avery, since she dropped the family name after graduating because she said it sounded like we owned a tractor dealership, applied for an executive assistant position at Payrail, paying $98,000 a year. I knew it was her the second I saw the name on the application. She'd kept her LinkedIn profile polished over the years, full of filtered photos from sorority formals and charity fun runs, where she'd walk half a mile and then take pictures pretending she'd run the whole thing. Her resume looked good on paper. 4 years of administrative experience, proficient in office software, excellent communication skills. The cover letter was perfect corporate speak about providing seamless support and anticipating executive needs before they arose. I told Claire, my actual executive assistant, a woman who actually knows how to do the job and who I'd never replace, to schedule the interview for Tuesday morning, and to let the gentleman who was loitering in the reception area know he could continue waiting, because I knew exactly who that gentleman was. Tuesday morning came, 9 a.m. sharp. Taylor walks into my office wearing heels that probably cost more than I used to make in an entire month at the diner. Her hair is still that perfect honey blonde color she's always been so proud of, though I notice the ends are fried from too much processing and there are new lines around her eyes that makeup can't quite hide anymore. She's trying to look younger than she is. It's not working. She smells like the same expensive perfume she wore in high school. Something floral and cloying that used to make me sneeze when we passed each other in the hallway. The scent brings back memories I'd rather not have. She doesn't recognize me at first. Why would she? I'm 30 pounds heavier now. All of it muscle from actually being able to afford a gym membership and food. Got a beard that's professionally trimmed every 2 weeks. I'm wearing a suit that costs more than Dad's first car, and a watch that costs more than his first house. But when Claire makes the introduction, "This is Connor Brennan, founder and CEO of Payrail," Taylor makes a sound like someone just punched her in the throat. A little gasp that's part shock, part horror. Her leather portfolio slips from her hands. Resume pages scatter across my office carpet like confetti at a parade nobody wanted. I don't help her pick them up. Just sit there behind my desk and watch her scramble on her hands and knees to collect the papers. her face getting redder by the second. Sit, I say, when she's finally gathered everything. She sits in the chair across from my desk. Her hands are shaking so badly the papers rattle. She can't meet my eyes. I let the silence grow and stretch between us. 5 seconds. 10. 15. 20. Let her marinate in her discomfort. Let her wonder what I'm going to say. Let her remember every single thing she ever said or did to me. Then, I open the conversation using the exact same technique Dad used to use when he was about to fire someone at the plant. The same way he started every conversation where he wanted to make someone feel small and worthless. Let's start with your greatest weakness. Her mouth opens. Nothing comes out. She looks like a fish drowning in air. I'll go first, I say, leaning forward and putting my elbows on the desk. My greatest weakness used to be believing my father. When he said I'd never amount to anything. When he said I was garbage that wasn't worth the effort. When he threw me out in the middle of winter and told me I'd be dead by 21. Turns out that was actually my greatest strength. Spite is a powerful motivator when someone tells you you're worthless. A single tear slips down her cheek. She doesn't bother wiping it away, just lets it fall. I didn't know this was your company, she whispers, voice barely audible. I swear I didn't know. Sure you did, I reply, keeping my voice calm and level, reasonable. You saw my name on the signature line of the offer letter template when we sent you the interview confirmation? You just didn't think the kid you watched get thrown out with $50 on the coldest night of winter could possibly be the same Connor Brennan who's worth 9 figures. Didn't think your homeless brother could end up here, in this office with this company, right? She flinches so hard, her chair actually rolls backward an inch on its wheels. The intercom buzzes. Claire's voice comes through, perfectly professional and neutral. Mr. Brennan, your 9:30 is still waiting in the lobby. He says it's urgent and that he needs to speak with you immediately. Tell him I'm in a meeting that can't be interrupted, I reply without looking away from Taylor. He can keep reading whatever magazine he picked up until it falls apart. I'll get to him when I'm ready. Not before. I turn my full attention back to my sister, who looks like she might throw up. Do you remember, I ask slowly, when I was 15 and asked for a $300 laptop for Christmas so I could learn to program? Because I'd read this article about how programming was going to be the future, and I wanted to learn? She nods. Barely. Doesn't trust her voice yet. Dad said if I wanted a computer, I should build one from parts like a real man. Said I was lazy for wanting things handed to me. Said real men earn what they need. I pause for effect. Then 2 weeks later, he bought you a 15-inch MacBook Pro with Retina display for $1,800 because your sociology professor required video editing software for one single assignment. You used that computer to make videos about sorority rush week. I watched you do it. Her shoulders cave inward like she's trying to make herself smaller, trying to disappear. Do you remember when I got pneumonia that first winter? When I was sleeping in the park because I had nowhere else to go and my lungs filled with fluid and I thought I was actually going to die? Another barely perceptible nod. I called Mom from the emergency room because I was terrified and alone, and I thought maybe she'd care that her son might die. You know what she did? She told Aunt Linda that I was staying with friends from school. Made up this whole story about me having a great time at college. Couldn't let anyone know her son was homeless and sick. That would look bad for the family image. The tears are flowing freely now, mascara starting to run in black tracks down Taylor's face. And do you remember? This is my favorite one. Do you remember telling me the night before Dad kicked me out that if I just tried harder, he wouldn't be so angry all the time? That maybe if I was more grateful and more responsible, he'd want to help me? Like it was my fault he hated me? I was 19, she whispers, finally finding her voice. I didn't know what I was saying. I didn't understand. You knew exactly what you were saying. I cut her off. You knew I was struggling. You knew I was scared. You knew I had nowhere to go. You just didn't care enough to do anything about it. It was easier to blame me than to stand up to Dad. Easier to let me take the fall than to risk losing your comfortable life. I open my desk drawer and pull out something I've kept for 7 years. Something I've carried with me through every move, every apartment, every office. The original $50 Dad threw at me that night, now sealed in clear acrylic like a museum piece, like evidence. I slide it across the desk slowly. This is what your father decided I was worth, $50 in a trash bag. That was my inheritance, my birthday present, my send-off into adult life. I tap the acrylic. I've kept it all these years to remind myself what rock bottom feels like, to remind myself where I came from, so I never forget what they did to me. Taylor stares at it like it's cursed, like touching it might burn her. Her hands are shaking so hard now she has to clasp them together in her lap. The door opens without a knock. Frank Brennan barges in wearing the same scowl that used to make grown men on the factory floor flinch and look at the ground. He's heavier now than I remember. Gut spilling over his belt, face permanently blotched from years of poor diet and untreated diabetes. His jacket is frayed at the cuffs, and there's a stain on the sleeve that looks a few days old. He takes one look at me behind that massive desk and stops dead in his tracks. His mouth actually falls open. "Jesus Christ," he mutters, voice hoarse. "Close the door," I say calmly. He does, but he doesn't sit. He never sits when he's in a room with other people unless he's the one in charge. Standing means dominance to him. Always has. Taylor tries to stand up. "Dad, maybe I should—" "Sit down," I tell her. Not loud, not angry, just firm. The way you'd talk to an employee who's out of line and needs to be put back in their place. She sits immediately. Dad recovers his composure first. Falls back on bluster and aggression, the way he always has when he doesn't know what else to do. When he's feeling cornered or uncertain, attack first. Think later. "Look, I don't know what kind of game you're playing here," he starts. "But your sister needs—" "This isn't about what Taylor needs." I cut him off smoothly. "This is about what she's qualified to do. And right now, based on this interview, the only thing she's qualified for is remembering exactly who threw me out into 8-degree weather with nothing but $50 and a trash bag. That's her primary qualification for this position." His face goes purple. That same shade it used to turn right before he'd backhand me for talking back or questioning his authority. Right before he'd tell me I was worthless and would never amount to anything. "You little—" he starts to say. I raise one finger. Just one. Security appears in the doorway before he can finish the sentence. Two guys who used to be military, now in tailored suits that barely hide how dangerous they are. Men who could break Frank Brennan in half without breaking a sweat. Dad sees them standing there and swallows whatever he was going to say. His hands clench into fists at his sides, but he doesn't move forward. I keep my voice level, calm, reasonable. The way you talk to a stranger you're doing business with. "Frank, you are going to stand there and listen for once in your miserable life. You are going to hear every single word I have to say. And you are going to keep your mouth shut until I'm finished. If you interrupt me, those two gentlemen will escort you out of the building. If you try to leave before I'm done talking, they'll escort you out of the building. Your only choice right now is to stand there and listen. Do you understand?" He doesn't respond, just stares at me with this mix of shock and hatred. I stand up slowly and walk around the desk until I'm close enough to smell the cheap cigars on his breath and see the broken blood vessels in his eyes. Close enough to see the way his hands shake slightly, either from anger or from the diabetes he refuses to properly manage. 7 years ago, I say quietly, you told me I was garbage. You said real men don't beg. You said I'd be dead or in jail by the time I turned 21. You said Taylor was the investment that would pay off, and I was the write-off that wasn't worth another cent. You threw me out into the cold with nothing but $50 and told me to make something of myself or die trying. You changed the lock so I couldn't come back even if I wanted to. You gave away or threw out everything I'd left behind. His mouth works soundlessly, trying to form words that won't come. Congratulations, I continue. Your investment is currently unemployed with $87,000 in student loans that she can't pay. Your house is 3 months from foreclosure because you took out a second mortgage to cover her last year of school when her scholarship got revoked for failing grades. And your write-off? I gesture around the office. Your write-off is about to take this company public at a valuation that could buy your entire factory 15 times over. With cash left over? I turn back to Taylor. She's sobbing quietly now, shoulders shaking, mascara running down her face in rivers of black. You start Monday, I tell her. $90,000 a year base salary, full benefits, medical, dental, vision, life insurance, the insulin pump Dad needs but can't afford. That costs about $30,000 a year without insurance coverage. You'll have insurance that covers it. You'll also have a 401k plan and stock options that vest over 4 years. If you do your job well, those stock options will be worth more than most people make in a decade. She makes a broken sound, something between relief and grief and shame. I look back at Dad. His face has gone from purple to pale. He looks like he might pass out. You, I tell him, get nothing. Not a phone call on Father's Day. Not a Christmas card. Not an invitation to the IPO party. You will never again tell anyone in Toledo or anywhere else that your son is doing well in computers like it's some cute hobby I picked up. You lost the right to my name the night you changed those locks. You lost the right to claim me as your son when you threw me away like garbage. His hands are visibly shaking now. For the first time in my entire life, I see actual fear in his eyes. Real fear. The kind that comes when a man realizes he's lost something he can never, ever get back. I pull out my phone, open my banking app, and complete a transfer I'd queued up last night. Been planning this moment for days, actually. Knew they'd show up. Knew his pride and desperation would bring him here. The notification chimes. Transfer complete. $250,000 just hit your bank account, I tell him. Check your phone if you don't believe me. That money pays off your house completely. Pays off the second mortgage you took out. Covers the equity loan you got to pay for Taylor's last semester. And leaves enough for you to buy a reliable used car so you don't lose that truck to the repo man you've been dodging for 3 months. Dad's phone buzzes in his pocket. The bank alert. He pulls it out with shaking hands, looks at the screen, and his knees actually buckle. He has to grab the back of Taylor's chair to stay upright. It's a gift, I continue. No strings attached, no expectation of repayment. Consider it my final obligation to the man who raised me. Except there is one condition, and this is non-negotiable. I never hear from you again. Ever. If you call, I don't answer. If you show up, security removes you. If you so much as like one of Taylor's social media posts about her new job here, I reverse the transfer and I sue you for harassment. The lawyers I have on retainer get paid whether they're working or not. They would love something to do. Taylor is crying so hard she can't breathe, gasping for air between sobs that shake her whole body. I nod to security. Escort Mr. Brennan to the elevator. Make sure he leaves the building. They move forward. Dad doesn't fight, doesn't argue. He just looks at me with an expression I can't quite read. Could be regret, could be hatred, probably both mixed together with shock and shame. At the door, he stops and turns back. His voice comes out hoarse and broken. I was wrong, he says. I was scared. And I was wrong about you. I meet his eyes one last time. You weren't scared. You were cruel. There's a difference. Scared is being afraid and making mistakes. Cruel is making deliberate choices to hurt someone because you can. You weren't scared of me. You just didn't see any value in me. That's not fear. That's cruelty. Now get out. The door closes behind him with a soft click. Taylor stays in her chair, trembling. I hand her the box of tissues from the credenza. Here's how this is going to work, I tell her quietly. You'll keep a framed photo on your desk in the assistant area where every single visitor to this office can see it. I don't care what photo. Could be a family photo, could be anything. But it needs to be there. You'll book my travel, manage my calendar, coordinate with department heads, and sit in every all-hands meeting where we announce new funding rounds and milestones. You'll watch the stock price climb on the monitors we have in the break room, and you'll know exactly what door you helped slam on me 7 years ago. She nods, not trusting her voice. One more thing, I say, even softer now. Every December, you will personally write a check for $10,000 to the Toledo Area Ministries Shelter. They kept me alive when I was 19 years old and had nowhere else to go. They gave me food and a place to shower and clean clothes when I had nothing. You will sign that check Taylor Brennan, not Avery, so they know exactly whose daughter is finally paying it forward. So they know exactly whose family is trying to make amends. You'll do this every year as long as you work here. It's not optional. It's part of your job description. Okay, she whispers through her tears. I'll do it. Whatever you want. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I walk to the floor-to-ceiling window behind my desk. 22 stories below, food trucks line the street. Every single one of them is running payrail. Every single transaction flowing through the system I built. The Colorado River glitters in the morning sun. Behind me, Taylor picks up the acrylic frame with shaking fingers, staring at those $50 like they're a haunted artifact. Welcome to the team, I tell her without turning around. Take the rest of the day off. Go home, process what just happened, and come back Monday morning at 8 a.m. ready to work. Claire will send you the onboarding paperwork this afternoon. Don't be late. She leaves without another word. I hear the door open and close. Then silence. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.